This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. When Missouri voters approved Proposition A last fall, they greenlit a plan to raise the minimum wage this year and again next year to $15 an hour. A provision that requires most businesses to offer an hour of paid sick leave for every 30 hours worked is also set to begin on May 1st. But there are legislative and legal efforts to undo Prop A. Yesterday, the Missouri Supreme Court heard arguments in a lawsuit filed by a coalition of business leaders. Originally appearing on Up to Date, the weekday talk show from our sister station, KCUR in Kansas City, host Steve Krosky spoke with a supporter and an opponent of Prop A. We'll hear from the opponent in just a moment, but Steve Krosky first talked with Fran Marion about how the law is affecting her. Marion has been a fast food worker for more than 20 years.
Fran, welcome to Up to Date. So good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So you told KCUR reporter Savannah Hawley-Bates at a Prop A watch party on election night that the passage of this measure represented 10 years of work fighting for $15 an hour. What did it mean to you to see the fruits of all this work finally come to pass?
It meant that see our fruits come to pass. It really meant that we actually have a chance at living. Right now, on the wages that we're making, Mr. Steve, we're barely surviving. You know, people don't understand that these corporations, we generate these corporations billions and billions of dollars.
Right.
You know, we're the workers, and all we're asking is for a living wage. You know, so to have that and to have the voters agree with us, it really meant a lot.
You know, you've worked in fast food for more than 20 years, Fran. Tell me your story. How did you find this line of work? What do you do these days?
I'm still in the line of work. I am currently a shift manager at a Wendy's location. Like I said, I've been in the industry over 20 years. You know, people will tell you, they'd be like, well, why this industry? I am good at what I do. I enjoy serving the people. But I feel that in certain people feel that I'm less than a person.
Why do you think that is?
Because we're getting paid cookies and crumbs.
Mm-hmm. And that reflects on how people view the work you do, the value of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes us feel devalued.
Mm-hmm. Why are these minimum wage increases so critical in your view, Franz? I mean, some might argue that these increases just wind up costing jobs. They contribute to inflation when these minimum wage increases rise. So why is it so critical? I
mean, as far as it contributes to inflation, I mean, everybody got to look at the economy now. The economy has went up. I mean, we're asking to have a living wage of $15. I mean, eggs right now are already at $8.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so everything is going up. The cost of living, rent's going up, everything but the living wage. I feel that we deserve it. Otherwise, we can't keep up with the economy.
Mm-hmm. It's just plain and simple.
Flat out.
Yeah. So what did it mean to you to hear that business leaders were suing now to overturn the measure that you worked so hard to pass?
You know, Mr. Steve, this isn't the first time we went through this. We went back through this again. We went through this in 2017 to where, again, the people have voted for a $15 minimum wage, and our legislatures overturned it. So we're not new to this, but I feel that it's time that we get it, that we deserve it. I mean, we're going to keep fighting. I feel that they don't realize that this is what we see as economic. It's basically economic slavery.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the key issues in this law is the paid sick leave provision, Fran. You know that. You raised your kids without any paid sick leave. How would that have improved things for you had that benefit been available back then?
I'm going to tell you, Mr. Steve, how that would improve. I can give you an instance to when my kids were younger. My son, he got a real bad stomach virus. And I literally had to choose between staying home with my sick son and going to work. And I chose to go to work. And it made my son feel some type of way. He's like, well, mama's choosing work over taking care of me, and I'm really sick. But what my son didn't understand is that I was choosing work because of him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I would have missed that day at work, that would have cost us a roof over our head, food in the house, even me providing the medicine that he needed to get better.
Right, right. You know, one of the arguments that those opposed to the mandatory paid sick leave bring up a lot is that it's hard for businesses to fill the gaps when employees decide to take those days. What do you say to that?
I say that means that you need to be well staffed and better staffed. And on the other counterpart, what you giving those paid sick days, that also gives you a less turnover because there's more benefits for the employees that encourage them to want to stay. All they're asking for, you get an hour for every 30 hours worked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not asking for too much. Just because we have it don't mean that they're going to, but if my child's sick, that's where I need to be as a parent. If I'm sick, I don't need to be at a store serving you food and I'm sick because then if I'm sick, I serve you your food, chances are you get sick and it becomes a domino effect.
Mm-hmm. So it makes people better off in the long run is what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How confident are you that the court's going to uphold this law that the voters passed with 58% support?
I am very confident they will uphold it because the Missouri motto is let the welfare of the people reign supreme. The people being the voters have spoke, and we deserve $15 minimum wage, and we also deserve paid sick days because at the end of the day, we're human. I'm a human just like everybody else. We might have different job professions, but we're all human. I deserve to be treated as such. I shouldn't have to go to work, decide between a sick child and going to work sick and enabling other people.
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to have that right to if I'm sick, I'm sick.
Right. We'll talk about this more coming up here in a few minutes, but there are also legislative challenges to this law in Jefferson City, state lawmakers considering ways to modify the law. What do you want legislators to know as they consider, redoing this law going forward?
Consider the fact that the people have talked, they have voted. We are human. All we're asking is for basic human rights. We're at the bottom of the totem pole. We don't get any type of benefits. All we're asking for is paid sick days to be at home whether we're sick, whether our children are sick, and a living wage. Like I reiterate, everything has went up in the economy. So you can't say, if wages go up, the economy's going up. Everything's went up but a living wage.
Right. Well, that's Fran Marion. She's been a fast food worker for a long time in our town. Fran, thanks for coming in and sharing your views. Much appreciated.
Again, I thank you for having me.
You bet. Well, joining us now to discuss the lawsuit is Buddy Lahl. He's the CEO of Missouri Restaurant Association, one of the organizations challenging minimum wage and paid sick leave, the paid sick leave law at the Missouri Supreme Court. Buddy, thanks for taking time. Much appreciated.
And my pleasure. Good to talk to you this morning.
Well, the Missouri Restaurant Association is one of several groups that is part of the lawsuit challenging this new law. Others include the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Missouri Grocers Association, Associated Industries of Missouri. In your view, why is a higher minimum wage and sick leave bad for Missourians, Buddy?
It's not bad for Missourians. It's bad for Missouri businesses. And so let me kind of clarify one thing. We're not opposing the minimum wage. Most every operator that you named there is already paying more than the $15 an hour as it is. But we do have a lot of concerns with the regulations that are required in the sick pay part of the initiative.
So that's the big stumbling block as far as you're concerned is the sick leave provision here.
It is. And it's not just the fact that it's sick pay. It's the 8 pages of regulations that a business owner has to comply with to be compliant with the proposition.
It's complicated?
It is extremely complicated. Like I said, there's 8 pages of rules and regulations that an employer must adhere to, and there's some ambiguity in it and some clarification that's not there. Our whole challenge is really that the voters, these should have been 2 separate issues. Minimum wage should have been an issue that was voted on, and then sick pay should have been another issue that was voted on.
And that's the issue that's before the state Supreme Court right now, Buddy?
That is one of our 3 pillars that we challenged on was single subject, having both items on the same ballot initiative. And then the fiscal note is not accurate, and then some of the ballot language is misleading.
Okay, you represent restaurants in Missouri. How is this bill affecting restaurants and other eateries across the state and Kansas City, for that matter, Buddy?
They're scared. They're scared that they're not going to be able to make payroll when this kicks in. and adhere to the regulations that are in there. I mean, this is going to cost Missouri businesses a tremendous amount of money, and I speak specifically for the restaurants, but it's going to cost all businesses, from hairdressers to the Worlds of Fun to the Six Flags. Every business in Missouri has to adhere to this. And when it was kind of presented, it was a big business bill. Well, no, this affects every small business across the state. So they're concerned that how are they going to do they have to hire an HR person now to accommodate all the regulations that are required in this proposition? And then where are they going to find the extra money to put in the payroll to pay it, which obviously is going to increase prices across the board.
Some folks listening to this, buddy, might be scratching their heads because, the idea of paid sick leave is a pretty typical benefit for a lot of jobs out there. Why is this aspect of it so tough for you and your fellow restaurant owners to swallow here?
Well, I can tell you, restaurants would prefer to put the money into healthcare. We would prefer on the wellness side, and many of the restaurants already do. They subsidize healthcare for their employees. We'd rather have healthy employees, or they're matching in their retirement contributions. We're an industry of opportunity, so this mandates if you're an entrepreneur and you want to open a business, now you have to calculate in, I have to pay people not to be there. And in the restaurant industry, if you're not there, we can't serve the customer. Have you ever walked into a restaurant and seen a whole section closed and you're like, you got a lot of empty tables, but
But the same
can't
issue
serve
would
them
apply
because
to any
people aren't there?
business out there that provides sick leave for its workers. That's again a common fringe benefit that workers get.
When your business is able to support a benefit like that, they absolutely will do it. This mandates that we have to support it, which puts an extreme burden on a small business for a startup or to even continue to operate. I mean, we operate on a very small profit margin. That the illusion that we are all millionaires in restaurants and have second homes in Florida is just not the case. Our folks, if they take a vacation, they're lucky to go to Branson for 2 days. So
At the end of the day, this is something that voters approved by a pretty wide margin. 58% voted in favor. Why do you feel like it should be challenged in court given that mandate from the voters, buddy?
there was millions of dollars from out of state that came in to create this proposition. And if the voters saw the 9 pages or the 8 pages of regulation, I think they'd have voted differently. Or if they did it, which we consider would have been constitutionally, and had it as two separate issues, then the voters could have voted on each of these issues as a separate item.
Why didn't you make this clear to the voters during the run-up to the election?
Like I said, we didn't have $10 million in the restaurant industry to fight something like this. This isn't the Missouri workers that put this on. This is Jobs for Justice. This is Washington, D.C. and New York coming into Missouri trying to dictate how we operate. I think Missouri should focus on Missouri businesses, not run them out of Missouri. We're going to be competing with Kansas and Oklahoma and Illinois, all our surrounding states now. If you're in a border city, for businesses to open up and restaurants to open up when they could just go right across the state line and have a different operating parameter.
Buddy, you said there were 3 pillars that you're basing your lawsuit on here, the court case before the Missouri Supreme Court. Tell us about those again. What are those 3 pillars?
So the ballot language was misleading. There's a lot of things that are in the details of Proposition A that the voters didn't see in the summary on the ballot. So misleading ballot language. The other is the fiscal note is not representative of what it's going to cost the municipalities across the state to enforce this. And then probably the strongest argument, I would assume, is a single subject, saying that minimum wage and benefits have never been tied together before. A wage is a wage and a benefit is a benefit. So, I mean, who's to say that next it's a very slippery slope when you start mandating what a business has to pay to an employee outside of the wage that they work for. So single subject is probably our strongest point, I think, between tying the wage and the benefits together in one ballot initiative.
I mean, why not challenge these before the measure was passed in November? I mean, if you're looking at other ballot measures from this last fall, like the abortion amendment, there were a lot of challenges to these types of concerns before the vote. Your coalition waited until December to file your challenge.
Well, that's a good question, and I wish I had a great answer. We probably should have. However, like I said, we didn't have $10 million to run ads across the TV supporting something like this or opposing something like this. So the ballot initiative has not been real friendly to the business industry.
How confident are you that you're going to wind up being successful here?
Oh, we're confident. I mean, on a single subject, this is definitely two different issues. One is sick pay, and the other is minimum wage. And like I said, we're not pushing back on the minimum wage. We already pay more than minimum
Right.
wage, so we think that the court should just hold it constitutional or unconstitutional, and then we'll live to work out an agreement on these others that come up again.
That was Buddy Lahl, the CEO of the Missouri Restaurant Association, talking with host Steve Kraske on the weekday talk show Up to Date from KCUR, our sister station in Kansas City.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer. This segment was produced by our colleagues at NPR member station KCUR in Kansas City.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.